A few years after we moved back to Michigan, I was invited to be part of the crew to walk one of those big balloon animals down the street in our town for the Christmas parade. However, the night came, I arrived, went to go meet up with the crew in the middle of this field, and we found out due to high winds, the balloons were canceled. So I thought, oh good, I get to go watch the parade, right? But I was asked instead to ride in the back of a pickup truck and just wave. Be festive and wave, they said. You can do it, just be festive and wave. And I thought, wow, that's easy. I can sit in the back of a pickup truck and be festive and just wave and smile, right? But no one warned me about the windshield that was going to happen that evening. See, we had just moved back from Florida. We've been there for 20 years, so it was a little bit colder that night. And the truck bed was metal, so you understand the chill that I was feeling. I didn't bring a blanket because I was going to be walking, right? And somewhere along the parade route, my Santa hat flew off and hit someone's windshield. And by the end of the parade, my hands were frozen, my teeth were chattering, and other parts of my body were not feeling anything. And my joyful spirit, well, it was rather questionable, especially when I learned when we got to the end, I was going to have to walk back 3 miles to get my car. So after we got to the end of this parade route, the crowd dispersed. They went to go see the fireworks, and there I was, cold, I was tired, and here I was sitting next to this cardboard shepherd who lost his staff and looked about how I felt at the end of this parade. But you see, that's just how it is sometimes. One moment we're waving and we're laughing and we're surrounded with energy and we're so excited with those enthusiasm. And then the next moment, you're alone, wondering if all that excitement was really meant anything. And that's the contrast between celebration and silence. We don't always prepare ourselves for what comes after the applause. And that's just not true for Christmas parades. It's true for every big moments of our lives. The baby is born. We've been waiting so long. The baby comes. But also the sleepless nights come with it. The retirement party ends. And then the search for purpose begins. The parade passes, but real life continues. Yes, the celebration was over and the reality sat back in. It struck me then, as it strikes me even more today. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement of a parade. Everyone's smiling, the music is upbeat, and there's just this sense that something big is happening. But what happens when this parade ends? What happens when the music fades and the streets are clear? We know this feeling not just from parades, but from everyday life. We all have those mountaintop moments when the job comes through, the test results are good, and the big event goes off without a hitch. We do that because we post photos on social media, right? We share the highlights. Look at us, we're all smiling. Look at us, we're all excited. We enjoy the joy. And then Monday hits. We're exhausted. Our inboxes when we get to work are usually full. The dishes in the sink are probably piled up from all the fun we had, and we just find ourselves wondering, now what? We feel it after weddings, graduations, promotions, and even after mission trips when you think about it, or even spiritual retreats. The high wears off, and what's left is life that we return to, that ache that just never goes away. And the injustice that still exists, the relationships maybe that need to be repaired. And on a broader scale, this is a moment in the world when we all feel the tension of post-parade living. Have you ever thought of that? Post-parade living. We live in a time when the world is desperate for clarity, for peace, for certainty. Instead, we find chaos, division, waiting. And we keep looking for that moment That moment of arrival, a new leader, a new law, a new answer to make it all just right again. But you see, the world doesn't just get fixed in a single day. And the same is true as neither do our hearts. We have a 24-hour news cycle and instant updates, but what we really need is enduring truth. We have louder voices, but fewer people are willing to stay the course. We live in a culture that rushes to the celebration, but grows really silent when the hard work begins. Today is Palm Sunday. A day filled with joyful waves, waving branches, and people celebrating as Jesus rides into Jerusalem. In today's gospel reading, Luke paints the picture. This beautiful picture we get, a kingly entrance. Jesus riding a colt just as the prophets have foretold, surrounded by crowds shouting, "Blessed is a king who comes in the name of the Lord." It's a parade. But really, and I think we all know this, it's really more than that. See, it's a moment that carried the weight of generations of longing. And this wasn't just a spontaneous celebration, it's really a declaration of hope. The people have been waiting for the Messiah, a deliverer, someone who would finally bring justice to them, restore their nation, and make everything right again in their eyes. And then they saw Jesus coming into Jerusalem, and they finally believed, they really truly believed, this is it. This is the moment of arrival. That's where this Palm Sunday message meets us, at the edge of the celebration and reality, where Jesus still calls us, follow me. Even when the roads are uncertain, follow me. We live in a world that's quick to move, especially moving on with discomfort. And the news cycle keeps turning over every few hours, and we scroll past sorrow and we skip over silence. But then there's Holy Week. And Jesus says, follow me. Jesus invites us to linger. Jesus invites us to stay. And Jesus invites each and every one of us to witness. This time it invites us to sit in the tension between Hosanna and the crucifixion, between joy and heartbreak, between palm branches and thorns. And in doing so, we learn something deeper about ourselves. But we also learn something deeper about God. We learn that faith is forged not only in the miracle, but also in the mundane. And we learn that resurrection only comes after we dared to face the tomb. It isn't just a story for us to remember. It's a way of living. And if we allow it, this week's story can shape how we love, how we lead, and how we show up for one another. Not just this week, but all year long, every single day. And what we remember today is just not a festive event. It's a turning point in the story of Jesus. Palm Sunday is a moment charged with emotion, symbolism, and hope. And as Jesus entered Jerusalem, he did so knowing exactly what was going to lie ahead. But the crowds didn't know it. They didn't see that part of the picture. They saw a figure riding in like a king, echoing the words of ancient prophecy. They laid down their cloaks and they waved their palm branches. They celebrated what they really believed would be the beginning of a political liberation and a national restoration. It was loud. You can imagine. It was loud. It was joyful. It felt like a victory. But what we need to understand is something that the folks of that time didn't. You see, Jesus wasn't coming to claim power. He was coming to give himself away. And even though the people didn't fully understand it at that moment, this parade wasn't just a celebration. It was a procession to the cross. And throughout our Lenten series, we've been exploring this idea of arrival moments, times when we think that we just made it, an expected resolution or even a reward of some kind. And maybe we've longed for healing. Maybe it's been closure. Maybe we've been asking or thinking we were going to get peace out of this. Or maybe even some clarity. And maybe we believed that everything was just going to fall right into place once we reached that one next milestone. The disciples and the crowd, they believed this triumphal entry was that kind of moment. They really believed the Messiah had come to Jerusalem. And surely now he would take his throne. That's what they believed. But we know the end of the story, right? We know what happens next. We know how this week unfolds. That same Jesus who was welcomed with fanfare is going to be in a few days betrayed. It's going to be arrested, tried, and crucified on Friday. The crowd's going to disappear. The energy of Sunday celebration is going to dissipate. The disciples, those closest to Jesus, they're going to scatter. They're going to be living in fear. And most of all, they're going to be so confused of what just happened. So it's no wonder that Jesus wept over the city. He knew that the parade was not the end. It was just the beginning of the most challenging part. And you see, that's that tension that we have on this day. Palm/Passion. This beautiful Sunday. It invites us to celebrate, but also to reckon with what is going to come next. It challenges not to be people of the parade, but also to be the people who are going to continue to follow Jesus into the days that follow. Even when they're painful, even when they're confusing, and even when they feel like anything but triumphant. So let's step back a moment. Let's explore a little bit deeper into the meaning of this whole scene. The entrance in Jerusalem, it's deliberately symbolic. He doesn't arrive on this war horse. Jesus chooses a colt, a young donkey, we're told. And he's echoing the prophecy of Zechariah, let me get that out, Zechariah 9, which says, "See, your king comes to you, righteousness, victorious, lowly." And then it says, riding on a donkey. It's a peaceful protest, a different kind of kingship. It was disruptive. The Pharisees, as we're told, they were very uncomfortable with the people shouting, and they tell Jesus, "Quiet your followers, quiet those people." And Jesus just replies, "If they're silent, the stones would cry out." Even creation couldn't ignore what was happening during this time. But the people, as I shared, they didn't fully understand. They hoped for a political revolution, looking for immediate change. They were desperate. But Jesus came for something much deeper, something eternal. And the thing about hope is that it often goes hand in hand with disappointment. The crowd hoped Jesus would bring liberation, that he would fix their lives, their systems, their brokenness in real time. But Jesus didn't come to sit on a throne made of stone. Jesus came to bear a cross that was made of wood. His mission wasn't about instant reform, but eternal redemption. Not immediate deliverance, but profound transformation. But think about it. Look at ourselves for a moment. Don't we feel the same way? Don't we think that same way? We're not much different than the people from back then because we hope for God to fix the mess, don't we? I've had a chaotic week and I'm like, okay, Lord, please just get us through this. I look for quick answers and I know I'm not alone. And we ask for God, please give us a sign. And sometimes when things just don't unfold the way we expected, some of us begin to doubt. And it's okay, but we begin to doubt. And sometimes we begin to ask ourselves, did we choose the wrong parade? And we wonder if we really misunderstood the whole purpose in the first place. But you see, Jesus' invitation is not to give instant answers or give us smooth roads. Jesus tells us, God tells us over and over again, there's going to be valleys, but I'm going to get you through that. And this invitation to follow, even through this confusion, this heartache of Holy Week, it's really what hope looks like. It's not blind optimism, and it's not pretending everything's fine, but it's a choice to keep showing up, to keep praying, to keep trusting day after day. Reasonable hope understands that God's timing isn't ours. See, that God's deliverance might not look like a dramatic parade, but sometimes it can be a quiet act of grace, a whisper in the middle of grief, a door opening after a long wait. I think of the person who keeps showing up to care for a spouse who has Alzheimer's, even when their name is forgotten. That's hope. I think of the teacher who believes in a student that others have written off. That's hope. And I think of the person who comes to worship even when they're struggling to believe anything at all, and just because here it reminds them that they're not alone. That's hope. Reasonable hope is not loud. It's not flashy, but it's steady. And in the life of faith, that steadiness is what carries us. Not just through the mountaintops, but through the valleys. And even during ordinary days. We live in a world where hope sometimes feels hard to come by. And many of us are tired between all this conflict, economic pressures, and this daily grind of having to be at work, having to be there for each other, parenting, caregiving. And many of us are just waiting just to get to the end of the week. We crave certainty, but live in an age of constant change. We long for peace, but feel surrounded by division. So when we hear these words, we hear the words Hosanna echo through the centuries. We find ourselves asking, can we still shout that word today, even though I have so much chaos in my lives? Well, here's the answer to that. Yes, you can. And maybe in so many of our cases, it's a different yes because of what we are going through. But it's not a shallow optimism. It's not a denial of the pain in the world. It's a defiant, determined kind of hope. A hope that keeps showing up, a hope that refuses to quit, a hope that trusts that God is at work even when we can't see the fruit. That's the kind of hope what Palm Sunday calls us to live. Yes, we love the mountaintops. We love those times that God gives to each of us. But it's not the destination. It's not the whole story. Friday's coming. There's going to be betrayal, suffering, and death. And I'm telling you now, through the celebration, we can't skip that. We can't skip over all of that and just rush to Easter. It isn't hallelujah, he is risen. We can't do that. We have to go through the journey, go through the pain, because our faith is not in a God who avoids pain, but with a God who walks straight into it and is willing to bring us along. God goes with us, and God goes before us. And that's why this week really matters. Holy Week tells us the truth of life. It tells us that faith is just not about the highs. It's about being faithful in the hard places. It's about being there when the parade ends and the cleanup begins. So how do we stay faithful when the party's over? Well, we keep practicing faith in small ways. We remember that God is present, even in the ordinary. Even after this week, God will be present with us. And we hold one another up. And we keep walking one step at a time, even if we don't see the destination. And we do it all grounded in the truth that while Friday is real, it's not final. The cross is real, but so is the resurrection. So friends, please enjoy your day, waving your palms, lifting your voice, celebrating that God has come near. But when the music stops today and we get ready to leave, remember that the story isn't finished. Friday is coming, but also is Sunday. The King is still with us. And I invite each and every one of you to keep walking. Amen. Amen.